Your point of view as a firm is one of the most powerful tools in your marketing toolkit. And if you're honest, your service offerings are probably pretty similar to your peers. And the best way I found to stand out in that context is to have a strong, compelling point of view. And in this video, we're going to talk about how exactly to do that. Professional service firms all like to think that they're very unique. But if you dig under the surface, it doesn't take very long to realize that most of their service offerings are pretty similar to their competitors. So the accounting firm that offers bookkeeping and tax planning and forecasting and other kinds of CFO advisory services like that. The software shop that has a process that involves discovery and design and development and testing and then launch and iteration, right? Differentiation is pretty hard in professional services in terms of what you do, but there is a way to do it. And I think that is through your point of view. A point of view is not an opinion or a perspective. It is bigger than that. It includes that, but it's bigger than that. It's your firm's stand. It is your beliefs, it's your values, it's your guiding star, it's what you believe to be true about the world, all of those things kind of packaged together. It encompasses all of the things behind what you do. And it's really powerful if you can articulate it and if you can communicate it clearly for a couple of reasons. One, I think it defines your brand because it's going to shape your narrative. A brand is just the sum of all of the touch points that your customers have with you. And so it helps you tell your story in a more clear and compelling way. It gives you content pillars to kind of speak about from a content marketing perspective or an authority marketing perspective across channels. And it gives your customers a sense of your purpose and why your company should exist in the world. Number two is it allows you to connect more deeply with your clients. We like to buy things from people who we think the way that we do, or even if they don't, who we aspire to be more like, right? By sharing your point of view in a compelling way, you attract people who either share those beliefs already or who find what you say to be particularly compelling. And it's much easier to do that with a point of view than it is to do it with the mechanics in which you provide bookkeeping services and that kind of thing. Three, it creates differentiation. While your service offerings might be commoditized, your values and your beliefs and your point of view about the world does not. And then fourth, it creates trust. One of the themes that you'll hear me talk about a lot is this idea of becoming a trusted advisor. And one of the things that clients look for in a trusted advisor is authenticity. A clear point of view reflects transparency. It reflects a sense of genuineness because your point of view was forged and shaped by your own unique experiences and not just something that you got out of a book. And all of that helps you foster trust. So how do you define a point of view? We're going to talk more in more detail about this in future videos, but our framework uses four key pillars. So the first is who you seek to serve, and that is your ideal customer. So we name who your ideal customer is, we talk about who they are and what their problems are and what their aspirations are, and we try to make sure that our point of view fits within the confines of what your ideal client believes. Because if it doesn't fit within the confines of their world, it's unlikely to resonate. And so we want to get really clear on who we seek to serve first. Number two is what you believe to be true, and that is your core beliefs. And these are the things that are kind of shaped by the engagements that you've worked on. It's what you think about your domain of expertise, and when your clients encounter certain sets of problems, it's your belief about why. When your competitors say a certain thing or when there's a general consensus in the industry that you disagree with, that's a really compelling version of it. When you are anticipating macro trends and you're trying to understand what the implications of those might be, that's another version of it. But it's basically like you could think of it almost like your unified theory about the domain in which you operate. And so that's the what you believe to be true about the world. Number three is why you exist. And this is the place of values. And so we'll talk about, I think values are incredibly powerful and incredibly underrated as a marketing tool because people really like to resonate with your why. Simon Sinek is very famous for his Start With Why framework, and he talks about why is kind of the most powerful piece of it. But a lot of companies, I think, do values wrong. They round off all of the edges. They make them very vanilla. They use phrases like integrity, which, every firm should have integrity. That's kind of table stakes. And so we'll get into it in more detail when we get into values, but I'm a big advocate for making sure that my statement of values has some teeth to them. And it's something that actually has a little bit of kick-ass and kind of gets people galvanized, both prospective clients as well as your team. And then the last piece is how you communicate, and that's your tone of voice, the personality within which you take these ideas and communicate them into the world. And so some people might be more serious, some people might be more casual, some people might have a bit of humor to them, which can be hard to pull off sometimes, but when you do it well, it can be very effective. Some people tend to take a very contrarian view of the world and try to be a little bit incendiary in the interest of kind of generating attention. It can work, but it can be dangerous. And we'll talk a lot more about how you create what I call a minimum viable personality when we talk about tone. But it's basically how you take all of these things and communicate them. And all four of these elements coalesce into a document that I like to call a manifesto. And so that's a statement that kind of encapsulates all of these things and is meant to be a kind of a single page document that your team can use to really take all of these elements and kind of put them together. You can publish it on the web or share it with prospective clients. You don't necessarily have to. I, again, like to use the most powerful language I possibly can for doing that. We'll create a video where we go into detail about the manifesto as well. So those are the four elements that make up the point of view. So again, who you seek to serve, what you believe to be true about the world, why you exist, and how you communicate. And then we coalesce all of that inside of a manifesto type of document. So what do you do once you have one of these? You make sure that you use it as a filter for identifying your best clients and where they go. You want to go where those people are, right? You evaluate potential team members on the basis of values, value fit, alignment fit, all of that kind of stuff. You take all of these elements and you use those as content pillars, again, for your authority marketing to build trust with your ideal client. You also look at the whole kind of customer journey, both from a prospective client perspective as well as from a team member perspective. And you think about how do we bake these beliefs and our point of view into every single touch point that we have with clients. And we'll talk more about that in a future video as well. So a point of view, in summary, I think is an incredibly powerful tool. I don't think of it as a nice to have, even though there are lots of accounting firms, lots of law firms, lots of consultants that maybe don't have a clearly articulated point of view. But I think it can be an incredibly powerful tool if you are more ambitious and if you seek to grow, because it will inform literally everything else that you do. And so in future videos, we'll get into detail about how you go about doing that. We'll see you in the next video where we dig into the ideal client profile.